Maybe if your kids weren't so loud, Mom and Dad wouldn't be so exhausted after they visit. My sister Vanessa's text glared up at me from my phone as I sat in my minivan, waiting for soccer practice to end. I stared at it, my fingers hovering over the screen, the familiar ache of injustice twisting in my chest. My name is Ellie Carter, mother of 3 amazing, normal volume children, and for the past 7 years, I've been trying to convince myself that my parents don't actually prefer my sister's kids to mine. Today was the day I finally stopped lying to myself. It had started like all our monthly Sunday visits to my parents' house in Prescott Valley. My husband Dave had an emergency call at the hospital, so I'd packed up Tyler, 10, Maddie, 8, and Zach, 6, by myself, armed with snacks, the iPad for the hour-long drive, and the homemade peach cobbler Mom had specifically requested. We arrived right on time at 11 a.m. Dad opened the door, his smile fading just slightly when he saw it was us. "Oh, you're early," he said, even though we weren't. "The kids are excited to see you," I replied, ushering everyone inside while juggling the cobbler. No offers to help. Inside, the evidence was immediate and crushing. The mantel, once covered with photos of both Vanessa and me growing up, now showcased a shrine to my sister's children, Ava and Liam beaming at their piano recital, Ava's school award ceremony, Liam's Little League trophy presentation. Even their baby, Caleb, had more photo real estate than my 3 kids combined. My children's school photos from last year were tucked away on a small side table, partially hidden behind a large vase. The art projects my kids had proudly made for their grandparents were nowhere to be seen, while Ava's watercolor of a misshapen horse was prominently displayed on the refrigerator. "Grammy." Maddie ran to hug my mother, who was chopping vegetables in the kitchen. "Careful, Maddie, I'm using a knife," Mom said, barely looking up. She gave Maddie a quick, one-armed hug before returning to her task. Tyler and Zach were already examining the new model airplane my dad had been working on, displayed on the coffee table. "Don't touch that," Dad said sharply. "It's very delicate." "We're just looking," Tyler said, his hands clasped behind his back. He'd been building models with his father since he was 6. He knew how to be careful. "Well, look with your eyes, not your hands," Dad replied. I bit my tongue, a practiced response after years of these interactions. Mom finally turned around. "Where's Dave?" "Emergency surgery. One of his patients had complications." "Again?" she sighed. "He misses a lot of these visits." I swallowed the defense that rose in my throat. Dave worked as a pediatric surgeon. Emergencies happened. My sister's husband, Craig, an investment banker, certainly had more predictable hours, but that wasn't Dave's fault. "We brought cobbler," I said instead, placing it on the counter. "Oh, good." She glanced at it, though I was hoping for the apple one, not peach. "You asked for peach last time," I said, confusion creeping into my voice. "Did I? Well, never mind." The doorbell rang and everything changed. My mother's face lit up like a Christmas tree as my father hurried to open the door. "There they are," he boomed, as Vanessa, Craig, and their 3 children entered. Suddenly, my parents transformed. Mom abandoned her vegetables to scoop up baby Caleb, covering him with kisses. Dad high-fived Liam and complimented Ava's new dress. They were animated, engaged, genuinely thrilled to see these grandchildren. My kids noticed. Of course they noticed. 10-year-olds aren't blind. Tyler looked at me, confusion and hurt in his eyes. Maddie pressed herself against my side. Only Zach seemed oblivious, too young to fully grasp the difference in treatment. "Aunt Vanessa!" he shouted, running to hug my sister. At least she had the decency to return his hug with genuine warmth. "Hey, buddy, getting so big." She ruffled his hair before turning to me. "Ellie, you look tired." Before I could respond, Mom chimed in. "She's always tired. I don't know why. I raised 2 of you without constantly looking exhausted." The afternoon proceeded as it always did. My parents fawned over Ava's latest dance routine, applauded Liam's perfect grades, and passed baby Caleb around like a precious jewel. When Tyler tried to share his science fair achievement, Dad cut him off to ask Craig about the stock market. When Maddie wanted to show Grandma her new gymnastics move, Mom told her not to do it inside because she might break something. Minutes after Liam had been allowed to demonstrate his karate kick in the living room. Lunch was served, and the seating arrangements spoke volumes. Ava and Liam got to sit next to Grandma and Grandpa. My three were relegated to the folding table we laughingly called the kids' table, even though only my kids sat there. Mom, can't we put all the cousins together? I asked. Oh, Ava likes sitting with the adults, Mom replied, as if that explained everything. She's very mature for her age. Ava, who was 9, smirked at my children. As we ate, I watched my parents interact with my sister's family. They asked detailed questions about Ava's dance classes and Liam's baseball team. They knew their schedules, their friends' names, their teachers' quirks. When they eventually turned to my children, the questions were generic, surface level. How's school? Dad asked Tyler. Good, he answered quietly, having learned that detailed answers weren't really wanted. Good, Dad replied, already turning back to Liam's story about his home run. After lunch, the real kicker came. Mom disappeared into the spare bedroom and returned with gift bags. I saw these and thought of the kids, she announced, distributing them. Ava received an expensive-looking art set with professional watercolors. Liam got a complex Lego set he'd apparently been talking about for months. Even baby Caleb got a handmade quilt that Mom had stayed up nights working on. My children received identical bags containing generic coloring books and crayons, the kind you get at the dollar store. Maddie didn't even like coloring. Everyone knew her passion was gymnastics. What do you say? I prompted my kids, my voice tight. Thank you, they mumbled, and the polite response nearly broke my heart because I knew they were genuinely trying to be grateful. While the adults had coffee, the kids went to play in the backyard. Through the window, I watched as Dad showed Liam how to use the new badminton set they'd installed. Zach hovered nearby, clearly wanting to join, but was ignored. That's when Vanessa's text arrived, responding to a complaint I hadn't even made. Maybe if your kids weren't so loud, Mom and Dad wouldn't be so exhausted after they visit. My kids weren't being loud. They were trying so hard to be perfect, to be noticed, to be loved with the same intensity as their cousins. They were failing through no fault of their own. Something inside me broke, and then immediately hardened. I looked up from my phone to see my parents completely engaged with my sister's family, laughing at some story Craig was telling, while my children played by themselves in the corner of the yard. We need to head out, I announced, standing up abruptly. Already? Mom asked, but there was no disappointment in her voice. You just got here. We'd been there for 4 hours. Dave will be home soon, and I promised the kids we'd have family movie night. The lie came easily, and the brief flicker of relief on my parents' faces confirmed everything. Well, it was nice seeing you, Dad said, making no move to help as I gathered our things. Say goodbye to your grandparents, I instructed my children. They dutifully hugged my mother and father, receiving patted backs and quick squeezes in return. Bye, Aunt Vanessa. Bye, Uncle Craig. Bye, cousins, my children said, while their cousins barely looked up from their new gifts. The drive home was quiet until Tyler spoke up from the back seat. Mom, why doesn't Grandma and Grandpa like us as much as Ava and Liam? The question pierced me like a knife. I met his eyes in the rearview mirror and saw the hurt, the confusion. That's not true, I lied automatically. They love you very much. No, they don't, Maddie said quietly. They love Ava and Liam more. They always have. And baby Caleb, Zach added helpfully. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Listen to me, I said finally. Your grandparents love you. They just don't show it the same way they do with your cousins. Why? Tyler pressed. I don't know, I admitted. Sometimes adults don't know how to be fair, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You are amazing, wonderful kids, and anyone who doesn't see that is missing out. When we got home, Dave was already there, tired from his emergency surgery but happy to see us. He took one look at my face and knew. That bad, huh? After the kids were in bed, I showed him Vanessa's text and broke down, pouring out every slight, every dismissal, every hurt look on our children's faces. I'm done, I said finally. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep subjecting our children to this emotional neglect. They know they're less than in their grandparents' eyes, Dave. They know. He held me close. Then we stop. It's that simple. It should be that simple, I agreed. But you know what will happen. Let it happen, he said firmly. Our kids come first. The next day, I called my mother and told her we wouldn't be coming to the next monthly visit. Why not? She asked, sounding more annoyed than disappointed. We have other plans, I said vaguely. What plans? Just plans, Mom. We're busy. A week before what would have been our next visit, the text started. Dad and I were expecting to see the kids, Mom wrote. I didn't respond. Is this about the coloring books? I thought the kids liked coloring. I still didn't respond. Then Vanessa stepped in. Mom and Dad are upset you're keeping the kids from them. I finally replied to her. Funny how no one seemed particularly interested in the kids when we were actually there. That's not fair, she shot back. They love all their grandchildren equally. I nearly threw my phone across the room. For the next few weeks, the pressure mounted. My father called, leaving stern voicemails about family obligations. My mother escalated to daily texts about how we were depriving the children of their grandparents' love. Vanessa went nuclear, sending a family-wide email about how I was being selfish and punishing Mom and Dad for imagined slights. None of them, not once, asked if there was a problem they needed to address. None of them considered that the consistent preferential treatment might have consequences. I said nothing, gathering evidence instead. I started compiling a document. Every visit where my children had been sidelined, every gift disparity, every photo on display versus tucked away, every time my children's achievements had been ignored while their cousins were celebrated. I added screenshots of my mother's text history, how she regularly checked in on Vanessa's children's activities, but rarely asked about mine. I noted how my parents had attended every single one of Ava's dance recitals, but had made it to exactly one of Maddie's gymnastics meets, and had left halfway through. I documented the Christmas where Ava and Liam had received iPads while my children got board games, the birthdays where my parents had thrown elaborate parties for their favorite grandchildren, but sent gift cards to mine. For 2 months, we skipped the Sunday visits. My children didn't ask to go, which spoke volumes. Instead, we filled those Sundays with fun family activities, hiking, movie days, trip to local museums. I watched my children relax and bloom when freed from the constant comparison. Then came the escalation I'd been expecting. My mother called, her voice tight with anger. We haven't seen the children in months, Ellie. This is unacceptable. I'm aware of how long it's been, Mom. We're their grandparents. We have rights. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Rights to what exactly? To make them feel less than? To ignore them while fawning over their cousins? That's ridiculous. We treat all our grandchildren the same. No, Mom, you really don't. This is about you, not the children, she accused. You've always been jealous of Vanessa. The old tactic, so predictable it almost didn't hurt anymore. Almost. We'll be at Parkside Restaurant next Sunday at noon, I said calmly. If you and Dad want to see the children, you can meet us there. A restaurant? Why can't you just bring them to the house like normal? Those are the terms, Mom. Take them or leave them. She huffed, but agreed. I spent the next week preparing. I talked extensively with Dave, who supported me completely. I spoke with the children, age-appropriately, about standing up for yourself while being respectful. I even consulted a family therapist for guidance on how to approach this confrontation constructively. Sunday arrived. We got to Parkside 15 minutes early and requested a round table in a quiet corner. I brought a folder containing my documentation, not to share, necessarily, but to have concrete examples if needed. My parents arrived right on time, looking annoyed at the venue change. Vanessa, Craig, and their children were not with them, which was deliberate on my part. This needed to be just us. The kids greeted their grandparents with cautious hugs. My mother immediately tried to take control. This is silly, Ellie. Next month we'll go back to the regular visits at our house. No, I said simply, we won't. My father frowned. What's this about? You're acting childish. I took a deep breath. I'd like to get through ordering first, if that's okay. Kids, what would you like? Once everyone had ordered and the waiter had left, I folded my hands on the table. Mom, Dad, the kids and I wanted to have this lunch because, despite everything, you are family and we do want you in our lives. But things need to change. What things? Mom asked defensively. I looked her directly in the eyes. The favoritism needs to stop. What favoritism? Dad scoffed. That's absurd. Tyler, my brave firstborn, spoke up. You like Ava and Liam better than us. The bluntness of a child. My parents looked shocked, then uncomfortable. That's not true, Mom said automatically. We love all our grandchildren the same. When's my birthday? Zach asked suddenly. My parents stared at him. December 15th, Dad guessed. January 22nd, Zach corrected. You forgot last year, but you went to Disneyland for Liam's birthday. That was different, Mom said quickly. That was a special birthday, double digits. I turned double digits in September, Tyler said quietly. You sent a card with $20 in it, 2 weeks late. My parents shifted uncomfortably. What's my favorite color? Maddie asked. Silence. It's purple, she supplied. Has been forever. What's Ava's favorite color? I asked. Turquoise, my mother answered promptly. But not just any turquoise. It has to be the exact shade of the ocean in Maui where they vacationed last year. The contrast hung in the air between us. This isn't a fair conversation, Dad said stiffly. You're putting us on the spot. You've had 10 years to learn about my children, I replied calmly. The fact that basic information feels like a pop quiz says everything. So what do you want, Ellie? Mom snapped. Do you want us to prove we love your children? Is that it? No, I said. I want you to actually love them. I want you to see them, really see them, not as an obligation or a comparison to their cousins, but as the incredible little people they are. The food arrived, creating a momentary reprieve from the tension. Ellie's being dramatic, my father muttered to my mother, not quite quietly enough. I can hear you, Dad, I said, and I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't dismiss my concerns, especially in front of my children. Your children, Mom said irritably. There are grandchildren, too. Are they? Because you don't treat them like it. This is ridiculous, Dad pushed his plate away. If you're just going to attack us, we might as well leave. Go ahead, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt, but understand what you're walking away from. My children watched the exchange with solemn faces. Dad hesitated, looking at the kids. I don't want to fight with you, Dad, I said, softening my tone. I want my children to have a relationship with their grandparents, but it has to be a healthy one. What do you want us to do? Mom asked, an edge of desperation creeping into her voice. She was starting to realize I wasn't backing down. I want you to make an effort. Real effort. I want you to learn about my children's interests, attend their events, display their photos, acknowledge their achievements. I want equality, not just in material things, but in time and attention. We're busy people, Dad protested weakly. You're never too busy for Ava's dance recitals, I pointed out. Maddie has a gymnastics competition next weekend. Be there. That's your solution? We show up to a gymnastics thing and everything's fixed? It's a start, I said. But this isn't a one-and-done situation. This is a consistent, ongoing commitment to treat all your grandchildren with equal love and attention. And if we don't, Mom challenged, though her voice lacked conviction, then we continue as we have been, pleasant, occasional meals in neutral locations. No more spending time in an environment where my children feel less valued. The ultimatum hung in the air. My father looked at Tyler, then at Maddie and Zach. Really looked at them, perhaps for the first time. You kids feel that way? That we like your cousins better? They nodded, eyes downcast. We never meant to. He trailed off, genuinely thrown. My mother's eyes filled with tears, whether from guilt or manipulation, I couldn't tell. We love you, she said to the children. We do. Show them, I said simply. The rest of the lunch was awkward but civil. As we prepared to leave, I handed my mother a printout. What's this? She asked. Maddie's competition schedule. Saturday at 2 p.m., Central Valley Gymnasium. We'll think about it, she said, but took the paper. That's all I'm asking, I replied. Think about it. Think about them. Driving home, Dave called to check in. How did it go? Too early to tell, I replied honestly, but I said what needed to be said. The week passed. I didn't hear from my parents, which wasn't surprising. They were processing, licking their wounds, consulting with Vanessa, who undoubtedly was telling them I was being unreasonable. Saturday arrived. Maddie was nervous about her competition, but excited too. She'd been working on her floor routine for months. Will Grandma and Grandpa really come? She asked as I did her hair. I don't know, sweetie, I answered honestly, but we'll be there cheering the loudest. Dave and the boys wore matching Team Maddie t-shirts I'd ordered. We arrived early to get good seats. The gymnasium filled with families, the air electric with excitement and the smell of chalk dust. Maddie's age group was scheduled to start at 2:30. At 2:15, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find my parents standing there, looking uncomfortable but present. "We made it," Dad said unnecessarily. Maddie's face lit up when she spotted them from the warm-up area. She waved frantically. My mother waved back with matching enthusiasm. After Maddie's impressive performance, she placed third in her age group. My parents approached awkwardly with a bouquet of purple flowers. "These are for you," Mom said. "Purple is your favorite, right?" Maddie nodded, wide-eyed. "You were really good out there," Dad added. "I didn't know you could do all those flips and things." It wasn't perfect. They still barely acknowledged the boys. They left before the award ceremony. But they had come. It was a start. The Sunday visits didn't resume. Instead, we established a new pattern. Dinner out once a month at a restaurant. Attending select events for all 3 children. Holidays remained challenging, with the favoritism still evident but less blatant. My mother occasionally slipped, making comparisons between the cousins that made me grit my teeth. My father still clearly connected more easily with Liam than with Tyler. But they were trying, in their imperfect way. For Christmas that year, the gifts were equivalent in value. For birthdays, they showed up with appropriate presents and stayed for cake. When Tyler made the science team, they sent a congratulatory card. Small steps. Vanessa, predictably, was furious about the new arrangement. "You've turned Mom and Dad against me," she accused during a tense phone call. "No," I replied calmly. "I've simply insisted they treat all their grandchildren fairly." "My kids have always had a special bond with them," she insisted. "Your kids were allowed to have a special bond with them," I corrected. "Mine weren't given the chance." The relationship remained complicated, a work in progress. My parents would never be the warm, doting grandparents I'd hoped for. But my children no longer came home from visits feeling invisible. They no longer asked why their grandparents didn't love them as much as their cousins.